we both have 25 students in our classrooms. And I think that at the beginning of the year, it's just a lot of relationship building as a whole community in just our classrooms, right? And adaptive wise, I think that for early childhood, it's really just keeping the just quick rounds and just keeping it at one or two rounds at first. And then slowly making those a little bit longer, but really teaching them the elements that go with the circles. Like, this is the talking piece, this is what the talking piece means. This is our centerpiece, this is what, really teaching them those expectations at first.
Yes, that's right. And also, as Elizabeth said, we have 25 students in the classrooms, and we teach little ones, 4, 5, 6 year olds. So we want them to learn the routines, right, of the circle and be exposed to it. So when they get older, it's not something new. Mm-hmm. But also, it's important for us to have circles, to build community, but have circles that are fun, right? So we have silly circles, if we want to call it that way, just to, like, what do you like to eat? What do you want to do over recess? Or what do you like about the class? And little by little, we start incorporating elements from our academic content as well, because circles is not only for having a deep conversation, but also to learn academics. Also, because we have 25 students, it has to be something short, but we use the opportunity at the beginning of the year to model it for not only the students, but also for our teacher assistants. So they can, if we choose to, in a moment that is appropriate, divide the classroom into two groups, one led by the teacher assistant, paraprofessional, and the other one by us. As Elizabeth also mentioned, we do collaborate in making these circles. Personally, for me, sometimes I get stuck in what are the right questions to ask, given the limited amount of time, and we want them to be understandable for the grade level that we teach. So for me, it's always better to collaborate with a teacher, with Elizabeth, or another teacher in the school, and have like a second, third pair of eyes revising it. We incorporate songs also in our circles as opening or closing, and we just like the practice to be an exposure in general at this grade level, and it has to be something that that comes part of the routine, and there is like they are expecting it to happen. In my classroom, the students knew that on Wednesdays in the afternoon we were all going to have a whole class circle, and there are little pieces that they get to lead, like the closing. We do our school values in La Quech together, and they actually learned it from music class before I did. So after 2 times I memorize it, but I always teach my students like, I always forget the words, you teach me. And they have some ownership, and they always were looking forward to that part of the circle because they took like control of it. The last thing about that routine is also the sometimes they don't know what to say or they don't want to talk, and we teach them that just as in adults, that passing is okay, and being active listeners is participating as well. So they know that if they don't know what to say, they can pass. We teach in a dual language school, so we do our circles bilingually, English and Spanish, and we use the expression, use the language of your heart, and which is a metaphor, right, to not only putting your feelings out there, your authentic self, but also in a more concrete way, they understand it as I can speak English or Spanish or both in any of the rounds. So we make the circle also part of our community and make it fit what our students need in a bilingual setting.
Yeah, this is the first year that I've used them kind of in any intentional way. And I've replaced a lot of conversation that would have been either kind of unstructured, kids choose when to talk, can talk over each other, kind of look for an opening, or a time that would be like a raise hands and teacher calls on them conversation. I've replaced a bunch of those during my morning meeting time with circles. And so in terms of nuts and bolts, my morning meeting has 8 kids, 3, 4, and 5 years old. And I'll use circles as part of our just kind of getting to know each other, relationship building. So we'll have a question that's really low stakes, like what's your favorite dinner? Sometimes as the year moves on, we'll move into things like, have you ever felt frustrated? As a way to just work on a little bit of emotional literacy. The kids know that they can always pass. And we've got this kind of one of those fidget toys. It's a breathing ball that you can open and it expands really big and then it closes up and looks like kind of a plastic snowflake. So we pass that around and the kids know that when you're holding the breathing ball, it's your turn to answer the question, or you can pass and just pass it on to the person next to you. And I think there are a couple of things that struck me right away about using circles as relationship builders. And one was that my quality of listening completely changed because I wasn't working on facilitating the conversation. I wasn't figuring out, who's cutting who off. Does it look like someone wants to speak and they're looking for an in? Or I wasn't managing even just calling on kids. That's still I wouldn't have thought that took as much mental space as it did, but it really did. That as I'm calling on kids, I'm kind of keeping tabs on, okay, this kid has been raising their hand for a while. It looks like they can barely wait any longer. I'm going to need to call on them before I call on this other kid. And I'm kind of managing all of those bits and thinking about all the personalities and all the dynamics. And when we use circles for those kinds of relationship building conversations, I'm just listening. And that has been really lovely. And I feel like I've gotten to know my students better. And I'm more relaxed. I notice my own kind of tempo is slower. And I'm just even my posture, I was noticing that I'm leaning back against the wall and I'm just listening and I'm watching the ball go around. And, I'm still noticing things about my kids, like who's passing, what types of questions sparked excitement from which kids, but it's just, I'm so much calmer. So I have loved them for that aspect alone, but there's been other benefits too. And one of those is that kids are paying more attention to each other than they are paying attention to me. They're not looking to get my attention to get called on. Instead, they just know, I know when my turn's coming and I'm going to just kind of watch the ball go around. I'm going to listen to my friends as they say what their favorite thing to eat is. And then when it comes to me, I'm going to say mine, and then I'm going to pass the ball around and keep listening. And that's kind of a feat for especially 3 and 4-year-olds. So that's been really lovely. And it's been fun to watch them kind of relax and listen the same way that I have too as a teacher.
I teach 3rd grade at the Henry Group, and my class typically is around the 20 size range. I schedule weekly circles on a day that just works. 25 minutes is typically what I like to give myself in a block. And that could be on a Tuesday, it could be on a Friday. This year, it was on Fridays. And it was such a nice Friday routine that we were in, actually, because you have the whole week to sort of reflect, and it was nice. I usually use a mix of circles that are shared around in the interwebs, so some from your newsletters, or using Circle Forward as a resource, or if there was a topic in class that the kids were especially hooked upon that week, writing some questions surrounded around that. And slideshow is preferred, I think, just as a easy planning tool. It's just copy and paste the slides from the week before and update. So I'll project that. It usually has both questions on one slide so that kids can look at what we're talking about now and then think about the second question. We sit on the rug in a circle. We have circle spots, assigned spots on the rug, and we just pass the talking piece around and have our weekly circle.
So I decided, especially in the beginning of the year, that I wanted to have a weekly circle with my classes. I didn't necessarily take a whole period because that would be that I wouldn't have any instructional time. And I found that even just 20 minutes for a check-in or check-out for that week, within a week, was really powerful and productive. Sometimes a kid would say, oh, they got into a fight with a parent that morning, and it just helped me check in with them later and see how they're doing and be compassionate if they really weren't able to focus in class and understand why. I also really like to connect circles to my curriculum as much as possible, because I found that one of the things I love about the circle process is more students end up participating and they feel like they have the time to talk without interruption and without judgment. So often that was the way that I would have students, as an English teacher, I'd have students share their writing or share a response to something that happened in a text we read. If something happened, if there was a national tragedy, or if something in our community happened that was a very painful experience, the structure was right there. And I have to say, as whether being a teacher, instructional leader, or now district-wide restorative justice coach, one of the things that I find so powerful is having students at any age just know how to move their desk into a circle. And within even little kindergartners can help do it within 30 seconds to a minute. It's actually just with that practice of we push the desk aside when something happens and we need to talk. Or if we just want to make time for our community, we push the desk aside and bring our chairs together. So I think it's very possible to build it in even half an hour once a week or every other week, but just to decide that it's an important part of your culture in your classroom and keep it consistent to some degree. So then if something comes up where there's a necessity and we need to come together and talk about something hard, it's already a practice that's been established.